What's up and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. I'm here with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, how you doing today, man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. But I have a simple favor to ask you. Please plug our podcast all the time.
Yeah. Subscribe on YouTube, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod, and give us a rating and review on iTunes and subscribe there as well. We appreciate all of our fans, all of you leaving us feedback, and go and follow us on Twitter too at NostalgiaPod. We post a lot there about things that we don't necessarily talk about in the pod. We got a pretty good slate today. We're going to be talking Waxahatchee, Noname, the Deuce, as you mentioned, A Simple Favor, and then we're also going to be live streaming tonight after the Emmys. If anyone wants to tune in, and we'll be putting that on at the end of our weekly podcasts through SoundCloud, so you can catch that if you don't catch it live. So, big show today. Let's start with Waxahatchee, probably the smallest of all the things we're going to be talking about today, just in scope. Katie Crutchfield, we talked about her. I think we talked about her album Out in the Storm last year. Maybe not. I think about it. At least. It's definitely on my year end as an album that deserved some recognition, and this was a short EP, Great Thunder, based off of the band, the short-lived band that she was a part of that recorded these 6 songs back in 2012. She really wanted to redo them, make it a little bit crisper, take out that lo-fi sound. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that you found this like a very boring album and did not like it, but am I wrong?
No, I mean I see the appeal. I think like the minimalist production, I think fits really well with like her style of songwriting, like the production doesn't get in the way. It just really lets her voice kind of carry the songs, So I think if you're, vibing with, the emotional wavelength that she's, on, I think the songs actually work pretty well. Obviously, again, not my cup of tea, but, I think it is well done.
I'm actually wondering what you thought of her voice on this, because it definitely wasn't as sharp as it was on Out in the Storm, and I think that was partially intentional and partially because she was sick pre-recording. What did you think of just like her sound, her vocal sound on this?
Just record later when you're not sick. I mean, she recorded this at Justin Vernon's like humble abode in Wisconsin, right?
Oh yeah, dog.
I think if you got that hookup, you can postpone a few weeks. He won't mind. But no, I think again, I think her voice does a lot for someone who's not like wailing, and she's not like piping it up either. But I don't know. I think it it carries throughout all the songs. But I'm not super well versed in any of her music or any of her various projects. But how did you think about this coming in from someone who's listened to her 4 other records and her other stuff?
Yeah, Out in the Storm was really her breakout album, and it's a really, really good album. And I think the thing that stood out about it was Waxahatchee has always been indie. She's very, I don't want to say minimalist, but she relies a lot on acoustic guitars, plucking away at piano chords. She keeps it pretty simple a lot of the time, but Out in the Storm was very layered and complex, and it really brought in a lot of electric guitar, really gave a nice ambiance to the music. And then she kind of went back to this, so it's a bit of a back and forth, because this is pretty minimalist. Only a couple songs feature more than just a piano and a guitar, so it's a bit of a shift back for her. But I think it's a really well done album, because her bread and butter is always going to be her lyrics. And I think, kind of going back to what I was mentioning before, her voice on this, and with the lyrical content of being a lot about heartbreak, breakups, broken people, actually kind of adds this feeling to it of like desperation, of really straining to meet a person where they're at. So I think the album's really effective and it's really well done. I like that some indie people that broke out more recently but have a deep catalog, kind of like Car Seat Headrest, are going back and redoing some of their older takes. And if I had to pick one song off this, I'd probably go Take So Much, the last one. Chapel Pines, the single off this, is also one of my favorites. So I'd recommend those two. Switching from a female artist who is really rising up in her genre of indie rock and Waxahatchee to someone who I think is going to be rising up pretty quickly in the rap game. Noname, man, dropping her second album, Room 25, this past weekend. Kind of a surprise drop too, right?
Yeah, she only gave us like a month's notice, but no singles really. She's been relatively quiet this leading up to it. So yeah, pretty surprising.
And Noname actually turns 27, probably the day that this will be dropping, the 18th of September. So she's fairly young, and I mean, she kind of came up in the Chicago scene, friends with Chance, friends with Saba, and Saba's on this album, which I think is a pretty good feature. We reviewed Telephone, I believe, back in 2016, or at least you did.
Yeah, we definitely mentioned it. One of the songs on their Diddy Bop was in my top 10 songs of 2016. Was a big fan. Telephone for sure. I actually thought that Telephone was, such a standout mixtape that she deserved to be an XXL freshman at the time. Obviously, she didn't have nearly a big enough profile to accomplish that, but it was still a really impressive, debut project. And I think she follows it up really well on Room 25.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about what you liked about Room 25. What did you think worked?
Well, I just think she has, a really unique sound that is, fun to listen to. If you read about her, she says that she actually came to hip hop due to her interest in slam poetry. And I think that, description of her flow, of her cadences kind of makes sense, where it's almost like she's saying a lot, like she's speaking pretty fast, but it almost like doesn't come across like that. I don't know. It's like, I thought this weird metaphor. I was like, she's kind of like James Harden, the way she raps, where it's like, it's like you stop, speed up and really fast and slow down really fast. And it's, I don't know, it's just something that came to me. But I thought, she followed that up with some really cool songs. And again, I think really diversifies her style throughout the project. And it's only 30-something minutes, so pretty quick listen, like Telephone. But I think it's a natural, next step from that. So I was very pleased with the project.
Yeah, I love the whole just overall sound of this. It kind of fluctuates between jazz rap and with some funk beats at times, some orchestral fills and swells, especially near the beginning of some of the songs. I also think she does a really good job as like a host of her album. In a way, she really lets the people that she features kind of flex at points and just moves off to the side, then kind of seamlessly comes back in to take over a song. Just overall, a lot of command and a very sharp album that I think is really intriguing, even though it kind of has a mellow tone to it that I think at points it can get a little too mellow. Well, what were some standout songs for you?
Yeah, I thought the second song, Blaxploitation, was really awesome.
Yep.
And then she just starts off like saying that how like you doubted that she could rap because she was a girl, stuff like that. And then there's a lot of like serious themes on this. I forget. There's a song on Telephone, something Casket, about just like being tired of going to funerals and whatnot due to like gun violence and things. And she there's some police lyrics on here, and I think you can kind of find a song you like, whether it's something fun or playful, like the first few songs, or something a little more deeper. Or even she gets pretty personal about her own journey, or moving from Chicago to Los Angeles. So, I think, like you said, I think at the worst points for her in general, it can be a little too mellow, a little too like wishy-washy. It just doesn't really, I guess, get anything done for you as a song. But I think when she does succeed, which is most of the time, it's just really engaging. And again, it's a unique sound, so that it's pretty refreshing.
I really like Ace, with Smino and Saba, the way that they just kind of trade verses and the way that they each like switch up their flows over the same beat, I think is really well done. she seems to bring like just a presence to this album that seems way beyond her years, and she has like almost a swagger, even though she kind of raps very quietly most of the time.
Yep.
It's almost like this silent confidence, and I'm really excited to see where she can go. As you know, she gives me a lot of like Lauryn Hill vibes.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I think she could really make a name for herself moving forward, even if she doesn't really want to have a name. So, little no name joke for you there. Let's it sounds like this is an album we're probably going to be talking about potentially near the end of the year, maybe on some best of lists, or at least maybe one of the songs off here. If you want to stay up to date with all the songs we're talking about and all the albums we like this year, go to Spotify, Nowstalgia Best of 2018. We're updating it, and we'll have songs from Waxahatchee and Noname on there. I wanted to get your quick thoughts on Eminem's response to Rap Devil.
Responds MGK with Kill Shot. Took him a few days to come out with it, and it was better than I expected from Eminem. But I think his best strength the past few years has been reacting to other people and other things. So he was kind of dying to get into this fight and go at MGK. I know a lot of people are burying MGK, saying he got body, and yeah, he had some good bars. Whether I legitimately laughed out loud at the G-Eazy Halsey line when I listened to it the first time. I thought the man bun line was pretty funny too, but I was still side with Rap Devil because I think that's more fun to listen to, and also and the Rap Devil hook just really funny. Yeah. So and MGK, he's running with this. He's talking about it. He's got an EP, Bloom. Something would be. He's an EP coming out this Friday. So smart on MGK because Eminem just fucking threw him a line, and he's fucking jumping right in the boat with it. So it's man, really fun. White on white crime.
Regardless of how good the kill shot was, I mean, the fact that Eminem's punching down to MGK is just a win for him. So why don't we move on though to something that I think we both really like, the Deuce season 2. We talked about season 1, David Simon's most recent project for HBO, looking at prostitution, the porn industry back in 70s New York City. I think the thing we talked about, maybe not ad nauseum, but quite a bit on this, is about how David Simon's just such a great world builder, and he does all these little things to give characters depth in a really creative and a really interesting way that gets people sucked into the world of the shows that he creates. And I don't think the Deuce is any different in that. Season 2, though, makes a pretty big jump, which is a bit of a risk for, I think any show is making a jump of 6 years.
It's 4 years.
I know that season 1 starts in 1971. This one starts in 77, but I can't remember if season 1 ends in 71. So it might not. But I mean, did you feel like the jump from the end of season 1 to the beginning of this, there's anything that really stands out to you and makes you kind of feel like that needs to be filled in?
Right. Well, I think I like the jump because the show could have rested on its laurels and just kind of ran it back similar to what it did with season 1, just more of prostitution in the Deuce in Times Square in that mid 70s time, right? And it could have been fine. All the characters, it's really deep bench of players, and they're all pretty well fleshed out through the first season, so you could have just kept it going. But I think this time jump to 77, switching more from prostitution to pornography, you're also changing up your setting, where New York City, they talk about in the first episode, they're less sympathetic to sex running Times Square, right? They want to clean up Manhattan, Midtown, right? So I think changing the whole vibe of the world, and also having some of the characters change, where some of them are becoming more like high-end, porn stars, as opposed to just being on the street. It's just really such a cool change to see the show just make this evolution just in one season. And I didn't really think of any gaps that need to be filled. I'm sure you could, probably look for a hole if you wanted to, but I didn't feel inclined to, because it's still a world I recognized, but it was different and, refreshing enough that I was just really happy to be back, in this new twist on a Simon world I thought I already knew. So I'm really excited about the season.
Yeah, and I think kind of going back to where I started off, prefacing, this discussion is David Simon builds these worlds, but he builds them around a point. In The Wire, he was building it around the point of how there's this like mechanism of street crime, of the involvement that police have in perpetuating that. And I think what he's looking at here is this evolution of prostitution to the porn industry, and how the power kind of shifted from pimps and people who were running these girls on the street to the women having a lot more power. And this is kind of something you start to see coming about in the beginning of the season. I guess I'm wondering, as season 2 kind of takes off and we're seeing how each episode's kind of starting to shape what the season's going to be ultimately about, which characters do you find yourself caring the most about?
I mean, I think Candy's a pretty obvious one, just because, going back to the first season, I think one of the really important things the show got right that needed to get right was that it was very tasteful with how it portrayed settings, themes that have a lot of sexuality, a lot of nudity, specifically regarding women. So it's always been, handling that well. And I think Simon and Pelicanos, mentioned that there were a lot of women involved in the making of the show and in the writers' room and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Candy always has been a character with a ton of agency, right? You just get invested in her, and she comes a long way by the end of the first season, and it's continuing in season 2. So I think just watching her is pretty easy to do. But also, like, someone like Cece, I thought Gary Carr was a big standout in season 1 of the pimps, and I think we already can see the signs that as the pimps start to lose power and they, what they thought they knew is changing. Seeing how that will unfold, I think, will be really awesome. And you see it with the other pimps too, how they're starting to see, where the tide is going. And so I would probably pick Cece and Candy. But I mean, I think, like even like Dominique Fishback's character, like again, like they're starting to flesh her out. And I think the Franco characters are fine. I think they serve their purpose for the show. But I'm more interested in some of the other people.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Candy's the obvious one, and I think you're supposed to probably care about her the most right now. But someone I find really intriguing as a character is Emily Mead, who plays Lori.
Yeah.
You start to see her character. She's now been, working the streets for 5 years as a prostitute now under CC's control, and she's starting to see all these other women around her having way more individualization, having way more power, autonomy over their future. And I think that's really leading up to a really interesting, battle between her and Cece for her future. And I agree with your take on Franco's characters. It's also just with everything going on around Franco, I do find it a bit distracting, but I think the show in a lot of ways kind of makes those characters have a very specific purpose for what's going on, and kind of lets the other characters move forward right now.
Yeah, it's not like either Franco character is like the hero or like the big winner of the show. So I think if anyone has reservations about watching Franco on screen, that's probably goes a long way, because you're not watching him be the, A1 protagonist and, get all these dubs. So I think that helps.
I do find Vince's character with what's his girlfriend's name in this?
I forget her name, but I like her. I like her performance a lot.
Yeah, I think it's Abby, Vince and Abby. I think their relationship's really interesting because Abby seems to be moving to kind of take power away from like powerful men in the society, and she's kind of moving towards this like protest sphere. And Vince, I think, he's just trying to like hold on to her, and how it's going to come into conflict. There's a lot of like little conflicts brewing, which I think are really fun to watch. I find myself not really caring about the police side of things, and they don't really show too much of it. I guess that probably adds to it. But I think overall, David Simon's really creating another masterclass. I didn't really watch Show Me a Hero. I know that there were some, that you're a big fan of that, but that was probably after The Wire. Some people consider that a bit of a disappointment in terms of like typical Simon properties. How does that compare to this show for you?
Yeah, so I think Show Me a Hero overall has less of an ensemble. There's still an ensemble, but it's more. I mean, Oscar Isaac plays Nick Wacisco, this young hotshot Jersey politician, and he is the central focus of the show. He's in almost every scene, and watching him rise and then quickly fall is the whole focus of the show. It's a mini series. It was always intended to be one thing. It's based on a real person. So I think it's different in that regard. Obviously, has all the Simon DNA you think of, and then it has a lot of great actors in it. Like Winona Ryder was in Show Me a Hero. I think that was one of her big, comeback roles pre Stranger Things. But I think the Deuce, just kind of has like more of an open ended, like message or theme. There's just more going on in the Deuce, whereas Show Me a Hero was more singularly focused. So that's what
bigger story for sure. It sounds like. Any other thoughts or storylines or anything about the Deuce season 2 that you're really looking forward to, or that you find to be good or not good so far?
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing negative to say. I think I agree with you about the police. If they're just, I guess they just have to be there because, just they're part of the story at the end of the day. But yeah, none of the cop characters I've got attached to, and that was the same way in season 1. Something I didn't notice though when I was just refreshing on everything about the show last week. So Margarita Leviva plays Abby, right? And Abby, when the show starts in the early 70s, Abby drops out of college, right? That's how we first meet her, right? Maybe in her freshman year. So she's at this point in her mid to late 20s, right? Probably mid 20s. Do you know how old Margarita Leviva, the actress playing her, is?
22.
She's 38.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, you look at her, you have no idea she's 38, so good on her.
I had no idea about that. That's crazy. I'm like kind of taken aback now he said that. Wow.
Only 2 years younger than Franco.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's just thinking about it now, because I'm thinking about the part about the police. I guess like the one interesting thing is that it does seem that like the political ambitions of the administrations moving into the city at this time are going to be influencing how things play out from the top down. I think Simon does that really well too, of like explaining these like complex changes in the story that happen at such different levels and how they trickle down to everything else.
Right.
I think he does. I think he tells that in a really smart way.
And I also think a smart decision was like the mob influence, the mob presence on the show with like, the racket protection and stuff. That's always there. And obviously they're really connected with Vincent in terms of the story. But an easy mistake would be to focus on the gangsters because, romanticizing the mafia of that time is something they do a lot in Hollywood, right? But they don't do that. They're just kind of on the periphery, right? Like, they have that moment in season 1 where they go and, they start construction site stuff where they beat up that foreman and stuff. But like overall, they're kind of just in the background, just there, right? Like Mr. Martino and whatnot. So in one hand, that's like an untapped well, but I also think it's kind of smart that they don't make it about the mob,
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. At the same time, I think that is definitely going to come back to them in some way, because they're going to be that overarching theme with Vince, where if things start to go to shit, he's obviously going to have to be dealing with that. It'll be really interesting when they do season 3 just on the docks of New York City, and how that influences it. But I think The Deuce, we can both say with confidence, is a show you need to be watching, need to be checking out. Stay up to date on it, because we're going to be talking about it as it goes on. We'll probably do a recap at the end of the season, unless an episode really feels like it needs to be talked about. Also, we're going to be talking about Insecure in coming weeks. Season 2 of American Vandal, and I'm catching up on BoJack right now as well. I hear that this episode's as excellent as it usually is, with one standout episode, which they usually seem to have per season. So
they got locked down.
I'm sure we'll be mentioning it at some point. So get your Netflix and your HBO subscriptions and keep up to date with us. Let's jump to a simple favor before we wrap up today. Paul Feig getting that 83% on Rotten Tomatoes with this joint. I can't believe it that this movie is that high. I was kind of shocked because I liked it, but I left just being like, this movie is so extra. Like, definitely extra. What was your reaction leaving the theater?
Yeah, no, I think it's a wild ride. It's a script that really compounds on itself by Act 3. Just really moves at a rapid pace by the end of the film. But this was one of the rare movies that I went in and I hadn't seen a trailer for this. I saw the good reviews. I'm like, Paul Feig, that's good enough for me. I'll go. And yeah, I was obviously pleasantly surprised, but I actually really didn't know what was going on. But yeah, no, I think there were a lot of moments where this movie could have cut off the rails or just not worked as well. But I think Paul Feig's a talented guy, great pedigree, and he landed the plane. I think the movie's really entertaining.
Yeah, and I mean, it's incredibly fun to watch, and that's kind of what I left thinking about this movie was. I was describing it to a coworker, and after telling them about the plot, they're like, "That sounds so ridiculous," and I was like, "Yeah, but it was really fucking fun." And I was like, this is the kind of movie where if it came on at on an afternoon, just like flipping around the channels, I probably wouldn't flip away from this just because it seems like there's always something catchy, always an interesting relationship on screen, interesting back and forth dialogue, something that really catches you. And I think Blake Lively in particular is just like fabulous in this movie. Like you really can't take your eyes off her, and she's goddamn electric. And her and Anna Kendrick seem to have a lot of chemistry too on screen, which I thought was huge for this film since they share so much of the story together. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts around our guy Henry Golding though in this film.
Hot off Crazy Rich Asians, Nick Young back again. I think it was another good showcase for him. He's had quite the 2 months, right? I thought he was good in his role as Blake Lively's husband, and the way that, especially once he becomes more involved in the story from Act 2 onward, I think it's a lot of fun. And you spoke to the chemistry between Lively and Kendrick. I was initially kind of put off by Anna Kendrick's performance in the beginning. But then as her character changes, I was like, oh, wait, no, now she's hitting her stride. This is really great. Lively and Golding, I think they don't have a whole lot of scenes together, but it works really well. I thought they also played off each other really cool. So, yeah, I think it's funny because you look at this movie, like you write everything down, what happens. There's a lot of movie cliches in this movie, like haunted house, weird family matriarch, blackmail, stuff like that. Various tropes, right? But I got to give Paul Feig a lot of credit because this is a novel adaptation, but from what I gathered, there are some big changes that happened. He was able to steer everything, and it just builds tension, maintains engagement the whole time. That it's just so fun to watch, especially when you're watching, three beautiful performers that have great chemistry and are clearly having a great time, So,
right.
I don't have a lot to say. I was honestly really impressed.
And it had, like you talked about the tension it built, it had enough twists where when I thought I kind of figured out what was going on, something would happen that kind of flipped it back. So even though it had those tropes and it did feel predictable at times, it definitely surprised me as well. I really liked that. I also thought that it did a really good job, like you said, of flipping Anna Kendrick's character and having some really good growth with her, especially as she starts to kind of figure out Blake Lively's background. I also think it mixes in some really hilarious moments as well. And just some ridiculous backstory stuff. The whole Anna Kendrick fucking her brother thing is I could not. I was in shock at that. And I think this is the kind of movie where as long as you go in knowing that this is going to be tropey and campy at times, but also just a fun watch, you're going to leave feeling totally satisfied.
Yeah, agreed. It's, it's one of the biggest surprises for me, for sure.
We'll probably wrap up there. I don't think there's too much else to really say about Simple Favor other than we recommend going and seeing it. What's up and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, coming at you live after dark, giving you our Emmys reactions, not our Oscars reactions, our Emmys reactions. Dave, where to begin, man? I mean, a couple surprises, a couple not so surprises of the night. What stood out to you? Let's start there.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, totally cleaning up in comedy, uh, winning all but one award, right?
Dominating the first half hour of the program just in general. And then, yeah, I think they only lost one category that they were up for.
Yeah, which was what Tony Shalhoub losing to
Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler, right?
Which, I mean, well, I think we knew Winkler was probably going to come away with that one. Shalhoub, a distant, had a long shot at the award.
He's also won 2 Emmys before, so
yeah, and he was good. He was good in it. It's just Winkler, I think, his part demanded a little bit more, and that's also probably why Hader beat out Glover for best actor, outstanding performance for an actor in a comedy series. Which I guess that's something we can look at. Is Maisel cleaned up, Atlanta didn't really take home a lot of the awards people thought that they might.
Yeah, I think it kind of speaks to, and you can see this throughout the whole show, is the a lot of those awards, those races where we thought, oh, maybe they'll rest on their laurels, go with, shows, performers that they're comfortable with that have won before. They'll just do that again. Probably everyone was saying it the most about Donald Glover. They'll probably just win a second time, unfortunately, which, not that he's not deserving, of course, by the second choice, but they didn't do that. They went with Bill Hader for a freshman season, which there's precedent for that as well, going with what's new. But, I thought that was just really cool to see that they didn't go with Donald Glover again. They didn't go with Handmaid's Tale again, They kind of changed it up. They weren't afraid. Or they went back to stuff like Peter Dinklage, for example.
Yeah, and I think that was something that, kind of speaking to your point, they've failed to do in the past. You think about like Mad Men or the Americans, a great example of shows that probably deserved to get a lot more shine than they did, but a lot of series kept winning over and over. Breaking Bad, back when it was having its run, pretty much won every year near the end of its run, and a lot of shows didn't get a shine. Not saying it's not deserved, but there's a precedent for the Emmys kind of rolling that way. I also think it speaks to just how strong of a show Maisel and Barry have been, and Revelations kind of in their field, especially with Veep kind of stepping back, really allowed these two shows kind of step up. Atlanta, I think also, I mean, I think it's the best show on TV, but there were some people that I think felt like this season didn't compare to the first season in different ways. Now, I think I would disagree with that, because I think it did a lot of different things, took a lot more chances than shows normally do, and I think it's the most thoughtful and well done show on TV at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to see some other shows get their shine.
Yeah, I was disappointed Teddy Perkins didn't win. I thought that was pretty clearly the best. That was for writing, right? Or was it directing?
Yeah, I think it was up for writing. Oh,
yeah.
no. It was directing, because it was Hiro Murai was up for that.
So, I thought pilot for Maisel made a lot of sense, but man, Teddy Perkins, that's a tough one, because it's a really unique episode that'll stand out for forever at this point.
Yeah, I mean, probably the episode of TV I thought about most this year. Kind of haunting in a lot of ways. What else? Something I think we were both surprised at, Laura Dern not taking it home TV movie.
Yeah, losing to Regina King, 7 Seconds miniseries on Netflix. Didn't expect that for sure. I mean, people love Regina King, but you just thought HBO would have had that in the bag. They didn't have Big Little Lies this year. That was their big mini limited series / movie push, right?
Yeah,
didn't pan out.
Godless took home a couple wins. I thought Netflix actually had a decent showing, compared to what I thought they would come home with tonight. And they were nominated in a lot of the major categories. And I think you had Jeff Daniels and I'm forgetting the girl's name from
Merritt Weaver.
Yes, both take home awards, which is great. Godless, I think, a show we haven't even really mentioned on the show, but something if we had more time we would love to get to. And it kind of kept Versace out for a while, but Versace ended up taking home the big awards in that category. You know, best actor, best outstanding limited series. I know neither one of us is really a big fan of Versace. What were your thoughts on it just taking it home?
Yeah, I mean, the first award it won was for directing. And I think if you look at any of the critical conversation around Versace, most people would champion just that. I think the show is, I guess, unique in that regard, the way it's constructed, the way it's, the whole season is structured, that it's more of a technical achievement than a storytelling one. Because I think ultimately the storytelling started to fall flat for me. For a lot of people, I think it was a little too long in the tooth. So I understand, especially, it's limited series, year to year, there's, not that many true, shows in that field to really compete. So, you understand that. So I was, I didn't mind that. And then I think Darren Criss is a worthy winner. I think he really chewed on the role of Andrew Cunanan. And yeah, while he's not a likable character, obviously, it was a really good performance. So, I didn't mind that. It was watching Ryan Murphy walk up there a few times. I was like, this guy's leaving FX, going to Netflix. Like,
yeah,
man,
crazy. Yeah, and also kind of speaking to another way Netflix had USS McAllister. I think I was a little surprised that they took home the award for what was that, best script or
no, that
in
was
a limited series?
Limited,
Best
no,
director.
the movie, the best.
That was best movie,
television movie, right? And that was at the expense of The Tale, or once again, Has Black Mirror won before? I thought Black Mirror did win something last
year.
time.
It won San Junipero last year. Right. Same category.
So I thought Eustace Callister was really strong. So I was happy to see that. Honestly, I thought that was one of the most conceptual episodes they've done. It's really cool, and I love that Charlie Brooker actually shouted out Twilight Zone and Star Trek on that in his speech.
Your guy Jesse Plemons looking a little ridiculous tonight, though. You see him on the red carpet. That mustache just ridiculous. Steve from Stranger Things, his flow, dude. I think his flow is like double the size of his head at this point. It's pretty incredible. So, why don't we talk quickly about Americans? We were both pumped when Matthew Rhys got the W for outstanding actor in a drama series. And I texted you saying, "Oh, Kerry Russell's got this in the bag then." Because if Matthew Rhys is getting these votes, Kerry Russell is going to get these votes too. Not the case. Claire Foy taking it home. And then outstanding drama went to Game of Thrones. On a weaker season, Game of Thrones still taking home outstanding drama. Did the Americans get job?
Ultimately, I mean, it is a tough ask, given the history of the Emmys, not really paying much attention to the Americans beyond nominating it, after a few seasons. I thought, seeing that they recognized the directing of the finale and, gave Matthew Rhys, obviously, in the final season, I was like, all right, they know the show, they understand that people are rooting for it. But no, it didn't pan out that way. I don't know. Kerry Russell one really jumped out to me just because I was like, all right, if Kerry Russell doesn't win, it's probably because Sandra Oh wins, which is amazing in Killing Eve, and she's really likable. She's a TV veteran. Very easy to explain or think about. But Claire Foy won for her final go for the crown before the cast changes, and another performance that's well liked. But I don't think there was nearly as much clamoring for it, so that's it's disappointing, but it's not like it's a highway robbery or anything. But yeah, the series thing, it's like, did Thrones need another win, especially for a down year? Not really. Same thing with Peter Dinklage. It's like, as we said on our predictions episode last week, SoundCloud Complex Nostalgia Pod, like, how much has Dinklage really chewed on recently on the show, right? He's been more of a side piece. It's not his fault. It's just the way the story's going, the way the scripts are going. So That just seemed like kind of like a look back. Oh, let's just go with Thrones again. No one will be too pissed about it. Again, it's not like they're not deserving. Obviously, I think Thrones, even with a down year, is still excellent. But yeah, it's a little bittersweet that Americans didn't fully, take it all home. But 2 great wins nonetheless.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing I think about Dinklage is that he had so much to do in the first couple seasons. Like you said, his role has been kind of, I don't want to say reduced, but just his character arc has taken a bit of a lull in the last couple. Whereas someone like Jamie has had a lot to do in the last couple of seasons, I feel like, especially with what's happening with Lannisters and with Cersei's rise to power and his kind of role in everything that's happening. I feel like his performance might have been some one to recognize rather than Tyrion. But, it is what it is. Thrones, I mean, I guess, like you said, no one can get mad at it, but I really think Americans should have gotten that nod, especially kind of landing the plane in the final season, having an ending where people were generally pleased with it. I was a little disappointed with that outcome. Why don't we just do you have any other thoughts before we kind of go to winners and losers of the night?
No, let's go. Let's keep moving.
All right. So why don't we start with losers? Who do you got for losers tonight?
I mean, I guess Atlanta. You kind of got to go with Atlanta overall. Did they win anything before the program? I forgot to check.
I can't recall.
Like all the guest. Cat Williams won for guest actor. So
okay,
some stuff, but they missed out on all the major things this year. Brian Glover's probably the most likely. I would have loved to see Brian Tyree Henry win, but Henry Winkler had it in the bag. So, but, I think still Atlanta, for a show that's still championed as the best show or top 3 show on TV right now, to come away with basically nothing is a little disappointing for them.
What about FX? Would you consider them a loser tonight?
No, because
Versace 3
was on FX.
See, it's almost like they got those 3 awards, but like you said, Ryan Murphy, the guy who's taking home these awards for them, ain't gonna be there any longer. It's a bit bittersweet. Probably wins for them in some ways. I would consider Colin Jost, Michael Che losers. I didn't find them I thought they started off pretty well. They had a decent opening monologue, but then I felt like they went back to the bit with
Maya Rudolph and Fred Armisen.
And I felt like that just fell flat every time. Bad SNL skit that we couldn't get out of.
Yeah, I thought I thought they were fine in the beginning. I actually really liked the self-deprecating nature that they were discussing, using that lens about the Emmys. I like that a lot. But then their presence just kind of faded away throughout the show. And like you said, I think going back to the Maya Rudolph bit with Fred Armisen it's like diminishing returns. Like I thought the first time they did it was funny, but it was also already starting to feel a little long, and they kept going back. So it just seemed like we could have probably went with James Corden. Like he would have been a lot better. But Lorne Michaels produced this. He went with 2 of his guys, so it's not surprising. But I thought they didn't have enough of the presence in there. Obviously, the far cry from what Jimmy Kimmel does for the Oscars every year.
Right? Yeah, it's. I mean, I wouldn't put the Emmys in the same stratosphere for award shows as the Oscars, but still, it's not even really making the push with people hosting.
Speaking of Corden, though, I thought when Corden came up to present whatever he presented, he had like 3 funny quips in 30 seconds.
Quick.
He really laughed at that,
Yeah, Corden's electric, man. I would like to see him get some more hosting gigs. I'm sure he will moving forward. He's a great talent. All right, why don't we wrap up with winners? I think it's obvious HBO's a winner tonight. Dinklage, Hater, Tandy Newton, which shout out that Samurai episode because I'm pretty sure that took it home for her. Thrones getting the big win, obviously. Anything else from HBO I'm missing here? I think that was it.
The major stuff, yeah. Oh, Barry.
Barry, obviously. Netflix, Claire Foy, Godless, John Mulaney getting a win.
Richard the King.
I mean, it's a couple that we weren't expecting there. And I think
Jesus Callister.
Yeah, Amazon and Maisel as well. Just for a company right now that's trying to really figure out its strategy moving forward. There's all the reports about them making putting $1 billion into this Lord of the Rings show or something like that moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Having something like Maisel, which is just going to be like cash money for the next couple of years and is going to be a critical darling as long as it's on, it's pretty exciting for them. So good piece to have moving forward. Any other winners for you?
I would still say the Americans are a winner. They won 2 awards, including best actor. So and part of that is given the track record of the Americans not winning anything. So I would say they're a winner.
Yeah, and I think the only other person that's a winner tonight is Betty White, because America still loves Betty White, man.
Didn't expect that.
No.
Was there? Did I miss it? Was there like a specific reason beyond? Did her birthday just happen or something?
I think it was just like a lifetime achievement, like acknowledgement or something like
that.
But like Betty White's old, and we all just love her, so let's roll her out.
And it's like, she was a little slower to the punch, but she's still like upstairs. She still had the wit,
Yeah.
So that was great to see.
Love me some Betty White, man. Overall, I think the award show was good. It could have been about a half hour shorter. It really stretched out the end, but Emmys, I thought it was an enjoyable show. Interesting to have it on a Monday night. We'll see what the ratings are.
Yeah, and I was thinking about too. Like you're putting it up against week 2 Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how much cross pollination with the audience that really is there, but I guess you're giving yourself a baked-in excuse. But
why not?
That's also why I liked a lot of the beginning bits. They're like, yeah, the ratings will be bad. No one's watching. Thousands of people in here, hundreds of people out there. Well, these are good jokes. Make fun of it. Go with it.
Yeah,
and kind of fade away.
Yeah, they faded pretty quick. But that's it for us for tonight. Hit us up with your Oscar thoughts at Nowstalgia Pod or
Oscar thoughts early.
Oh man, Emmy thoughts. I'm gonna keep saying Oscars. This is terrible. Give us your Emmy thoughts. Comment below or hit us up at Nowstalgia Pod on Twitter. We want to hear whether you thought they got it right, got it wrong, who you thought should have gotten it. Also subscribe to the pod, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. Catch it everywhere that you listen to your pod.
Well, the number one thing on my list, of course, is Brockhampton's new album, Iridescence, coming out on Friday. Stoked to sell for that. They recorded it all in London on Abbey Road, and they've had quite the whirlwind summer as a group. So interested to see what they have to say on that. Also interesting, I'm not excited for this at all, but Lil Wayne's The Carter 5 is coming out on Friday. All the label issues aside, it's finally coming out.
Oh God!
My thing is, why were we excited about 2013 Lil Wayne? It wasn't that great then either. So what's the big deal? This is like the drought Lil Wayne, So it's like it's still old over the hill Lil Wayne. It's just 5 years old. I don't get the hype.
Me neither. God. Yeah, and then I think any movies for next week that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I haven't checked the total release of it yet, but if it's out, I'm interested in Assassination Nation. It's a Sundance film. I've seen the trailer. It looks really cool. It's basically about how social media takes over this town and all the high school kids start killing each other and stuff. And it looks really unique. And I'm stoked for that. There's been a lot of good movies about social media that are more realistic these days, like Searching in 8th Grade.
Yep.
So a little more fantastical play on that. Sign me up for that.
Definitely. And we'll probably be talking about some other albums, any other news that comes up. So stay tuned. And also, you're probably going to be listening to this after our Emmys post game, but go give that a listen and a share, see if our predictions were right, and just hear the overall breakdown, what these awards might mean for the shows that we love moving forward. So for Dave Martinson, I'm Pat Sheehan. Go to our Twitter page at Nowstalgia Pod. Give us a follow. SoundCloud.com/NowstalgiaPod. We love you. Peace out.